Hi, this is 9 pages, and if I can't get it all up on YouTube, you can go to my Facebook timeline, Trudi Trahan-upchan, and even if I'm dead, it should be there, and the title is "Canola is Poison." My condition is terminal, and I don't know how much longer I have. Certainly not very long compared to the 60 years of research. I'm now 77, and the nerve damage from a tumor has set me back into a condition where I cannot control my Parkinsonism. Okra is keeping me alive, but anyway, I want to get this story out. Canola oil is poison. And this is a true story told to me by a dying German. And it's not that I didn't believe him, but I didn't put it out because I wanted to track as much as I could the evidence. And it was developed by fascist Nazis in the 1930s from rape, R-A-P-E, rapeseed oil, which is extremely toxic and has no business in the food industry. Never did. It may have industrial benefits. It's a highly penetrating oil, but it certainly doesn't belong fed to your animals, and the research proved that. Anyway, this is his story, and I promise to never reveal his name because his family didn't know anything about his life during Nazi Germany occupation. And I knew him for almost 10 years. He was a gentle soul, a German expatriate, but it was not until he was dying that he told me this story, and I promised to never reveal his name. He was still terrified of Canadian Nazi repercussions, and I certainly don't blame him. I promised him that if I could ever get well enough to track, research, and find the evidence that rapeseed oil alias canola is toxic and poison, I would get it published if I could. Well, I was never able to do that. I tracked it, but I couldn't get it published. But I have completed the quest. All copies of scientific documents that prove everything this dear, sweet, dying man told me. And they came from an American library which now no longer exist, and I have that also. I've uploaded them all onto Facebook. I have neither the means nor the tech know-how to save them, other than what I did was just simply copy the main, most important ones and put them up. And they were far too many, thousands and thousands of documents. What I have done is to post most of the important scientific evidence that proves that rapeseed oil, alias canola oil, which means Canada oil, developed by the Canadian Health Canada's corruption and Monsanto. And the FDA and most of Europe had banned it in 1994 because it proved to be poisonous and caused the symptoms of my disease to animals that ate it. But then in 1994, the FDA were duped by the Canadian government. Check out a book called On the Take, and you will see plenty of corruption. And now the medical field believes it's safe, but it's a pack of lies. I did contact Dr. Oz and the Seventh-day Adventist head office in Kansas City, asking them to take canola out of their recommendation. If you don't want to attack it, for God's sakes, don't recommend it. The facts speak for themselves, most of which governments and millions of people all over the world knew, everyone, that is, but us, the dummy population, the masses. I'll just call him Hans in my story. May 1989, Hans over the years told me many stories. One in particular was that Canada had allowed hundreds of known war criminals, German Nazis, into Canada, and that he knew of several right within our district. When I flew to New York in May 1989 in a desperate bid to finish my research into cheminosis, any disease caused by chemicals, I did meet with several scientists who shall remain anonymous, a bargain I made to get information that otherwise they would not give me. I also contacted a Zionist organization in New York to tell them what Hans had told me, and sometime later this part of the story was proven by a young Jewish journalist who did a documentary, part of which was aired on 60 Minutes. Over 100 had been given government jobs, never even bothered to change their names. They were that safe in Canada. Yes, Canada is a safe haven for criminals of all sorts. This journalist was amazed at how easy it was for them to be found. They were all listed in phone books and their real names. All were in low-paying jobs but lived in very wealthy districts and contributed nothing to our society. So why were they here? Well, obviously somebody got paid something under the table. He said that these were sociopathic men who enjoyed killing and participated in monstrous killing of thousands of Jews, of course, but they also killed thousands of German people, Germans who may be handicapped and considered not worth keeping alive, Germans who may have spoken out against Hitler's insane regime. When I returned from New York, Hans was delighted that I had managed to get a hold of someone in New York, in the Zionist organization, as well as a neurologist and a biochemist, to prove my theory that my disease was in my brain, and when poisoned it was dysfunctional and shut down. Well, right now I'm no longer poisoned, but I'm shutting down anyway, which has something to do with the tumor and nerve damage. I've achieved a lot, and yet I've also failed a lot, in my opinion. It's my allergies. I've got an itchy nose. Sorry about that. Looking back, it may not seem like much, but it was an important piece of the mystery into disease caused by toxic chemicals, air, food, and water, and beverages. I was terminal in a bubble gas mask at the time, and now I can manage with a small MSA gas mask since 1989. And frankly, I'm thrilled with it. And my newest one, the Advantage, is wonderful. It's very lightweight, lasts a very long time. And God bless MSA in Pittsburgh for donating the masks for me to do my research. I shared all that research with the military at Camp Borden, later with the Steelworkers Union and factory workers, and as many as I could, except for the auto workers. The union wasn't interested. Killing the men on the job, and what do they care? Put them out and strike for 10 cents an hour. Yeah, that's the Canadian approach. But thank God for the Americans. They took a different attitude. Anyway, in 1991, I had a remission. I was gorgeous, and my little gas mask, and I was rebuilding my leg damaged muscles from the years of paralyzing. And I thought I'd made it. 1993, I have amazing photos. And then 1994, I took another terminal attack. Well, it turned out it was because canola oil was in a health food product. I won't say the name of the company, but they had been coerced by Health Canada inspectors to put canola oil into the product. And in Canada, we don't have right-to-know legislation, so it was not on the label. 1995, rain was pouring down, pounding on my windows, when I got an urgent call from Hans to come over immediately. "We must talk," he said. When I arrived, there was a big pot of decaf coffee on the stove. I was on crutches, and he helped me sit down at the table. He was very nervous, even shaking. He was that upset. "I know what caused your disease. My God, why did I not see it sooner?" he said. "You are being systemically poisoned by that Nazi shit, canola oil." He said, "You began to get sick in 1947. That shit came to Canada at that time with the Nazis. You've been systemically poisoned over and over again all your life. Those bastards in Canadian government knew that. They knew it all along. He was very upset. I sat frozen, looking at Hans, silent, listening to his horror story. Much of it took years to sink in. I wrote it all down as he was talking. Because at that point, my brain was just so much in a fog. It was like looking through a cobweb. He said, there's no such thing as a canola plant. It's a patented name by Monsanto and the corrupt fascist pigs at Health Canada in the government to hide its real name is rape, R-A-P-E. It rapes your immune system. It is a weed, a toxic weed, that many countries like China use. Well, so what? That doesn't mean it's a recommendation. China has billions of people. Why should they care how many die from it? Denmark used it too, but they were infiltrated by the Nazis and too many other countries to count. But Canada is the worst. They gave it a name to hide what it really is. A user-friendly name, Canada Oil. Everybody thinks Canada's got the world's best healthcare system, so that would soften the blow. And then they changed it to shorten it, CANOLA. But it's all fake and it's all fraud. They first discovered rapeseed oil in North Africa when they ran out of diesel fuel. And they used the oil to run their tanks. One little tiny rapeseed oil will give you 3 times the oil yield of corn. So that makes it very economical to produce. He said, I worked for those murdering pigs as a boy in one of their labs where they were doing experiments with rapeseed oil. Many got very sick and many never recovered. First as a fuel because it can grow anywhere. It's a goddamn weed if it'll grow in a swamp or a desert, Hans said. Rape grows very fast, very cheap. But it's poison. That Nazi shit is poison. It does not kill quick. No, it's worse. It kills you slowly over decades. Look what it did to you, Trudi, in your life. And it will do that to millions of children around the world. You must research, my dear. You must find the proof. And try to get it published and exposed. That's your mission in life. I see it now. He was so upset. He was near tears now. Trudi, listen to me. I'm dying. I know that. But God is my witness. It never dawned on me until today that it was canola all along. I was just the boy with 5 sisters and a mother to feed. My father had been killed, forced to be a soldier in a war he never believed in. If he had refused, he would have been killed. But never mind that. That's all past history. You must live and understand. You must promise never give up. And he went on to tell me so much more. Then he burst into tears and we hugged, and I never saw him again. He died with a heart attack 3 weeks later in his sleep. Today, looking back, it all seems so obvious. I never got sick when I ate at his house because he made sure that Nazi shit was not in his food. I never got sick in Toronto when I ate with my Jewish, Muslim, Greek, Italian, Hindu clients either. And they never used that Nazi shit in their food. But I always got sick eating Canadian. Always got sick at my mother's. Never got sick at my French grandmother's farm. She didn't use that shit. But yeah, the junk food, the fast foods, always sick at home with my parents. I never got sick in New York either, but that's because it was banned until 1994. 2005, I took another fatal attack. And I called a kind scientist, Glenn, in Washington, D.C., and begging him to take the research that I had, and I shipped it to him. And at the time he said to me, Trudi, are you still eating Canadian food? I said, gee, Glenn, I live in Canada. I don't understand the question. Oh, forgive me. I just assumed you knew, he said. Knew what? Trudi, you have no right to know legislation in Canada. Canola oil is in all your food, and it does not even have to be identified on the label. You have to boycott all Canadian food. I don't have much time. I'm on my way to France. I'm moving there. Mail your stuff. I'll keep it. You'll survive. You'll get it. You'll get the story out. Well, I survived within limits, you might say. But certainly it's not been a perfect time. It took me from 2005 to 2011 to be able to make a sentence that wasn't like gibberish. I had so much brain damage that I couldn't make a sentence. I couldn't write. I got the help of Jim Brown, a journalist, to do one story. It's a pretty good story, but it has nothing to do with canola oil. But my life has just been brutal torture. I had to relearn how to make a sentence. If I'd been caught in early stages, raw okra would have reversed me like that. But now it took a decade. I created a website to get the research out. All that work will die when I die. I didn't think of that when I did the website. But now that I've taken another attack and I've been in bed for 6 months most of the time, it finally dawned on me that I only have two places. Facebook, I don't think they'll cancel my timeline when I die. It'll still be there, I hope. And YouTube. So at this final stage of my quest to save children from a fate worse than death, for living with dying is what I've done, it's not what I would want a child to endure. I actually look forward to dying, to getting off this planet. I have just suffered so much. I've been so tortured and treated so brutal. But that's another story. That's my life story, and I put that also on YouTube. The title is Chemicals, Your Silent Genocide. I lost my son, forced to give him up for adoption. Anyway, the year 2000, a woman in the United States contacted me and sent me a package of copies of the scientific evidence that rapeseed alias canola, as far back as 1951, was known to contain naturally highly toxic chemicals, 3 in particular: uric acid, nitriles, and tannins. 1979 veterinary medicine clearly documented research that rape poisoned animals, which is what canola is from. Rape alias canola was banned in the U.S., and that's why. But I was never well enough to do anything with the documents until recently. And that woman has since died. But she typed up a synopsis for me, which was frankly so scientific it meant nothing to me. So I didn't upload that onto any of my websites or to Facebook because it's too complicated. I did send it out to Israel, to the Zionist organization in Israel. And since then, they sent me a copy of a video of non-invasive surgery, which we don't have in Canada. Now, I'm talking to you November 26, 2018, and I'm going back 18 years here. However, I did keep everything, but there's no one to give it to because no one cares. There was a time when the National Enquirer would have leaped at the chance to publish my story, but that's all changed. That's all gone now. They're only interested in celebrities. They don't care about real people anymore, but they helped me a lot back in the days. They helped me a lot. There were all kinds of people like me all over the world, and they did a story on it, and they called it 20th century disease. The real name is Parkinsonism, okay? But neither Hans nor myself realized that there was no human rights in Canada on food labels. Because if he'd have known that in 1995, I would have boycotted all food then and saved myself decades of grief and more physical and brain damage. But I didn't know that. So here are the recollections of the facts of what he told me. He said the Nazis came up with the idea that if rapeseed oil was put into food, it acted as a preservative, much like embalming fluid, and gave food a 2-year shelf life. When they tested it in larger doses on women, men, and children, they did not die quickly, but lived for years with the very same symptoms that I have always had since my first attack at the age of 7. Or 6, actually. 6. 1947. Their demonic plan was to get it approved, first in Canada, using it as a back door to get it into the U.S. So first to get it approved in Canada, and then later they would get it approved in the United States with the FDA, which they succeeded in doing in 1994. And doctors will not be able to diagnose the cause of victims of chronic illnesses, as they will eventually get severe immune deficiencies, metabolic breakdown, which in itself will lead to other diseases invading their bodies. After decades of chronic illnesses, doctors would misdiagnose MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and 100 different kinds of cancers. But the cause would all be canola oil, and they'll never be linked to canola oil, nor will it ever be detected. He went on to describe a plan so horrible it was almost unbelievable. As a direct consequence of having canola oil approved, then doctors would worldwide misdiagnose and then prescribe drugs. And the prescription drug industry would have such a hold on society and human species at large that we will create an entire society of legal drug addicts. The money these Nazi maniacs envisioned that they would make would stagger your imagination. Not millions, not billions, but trillions. Such is the greed of such men. Today I know his story is true. My own personal experience, I had become a legal drug addict at 24, addicted to antibiotics to combat infections, addicted to pain meds to combat the chronic pain. There were many other medications prescribed. Then in 1984, I just flat out refused to take them. I was terminal and dying, and I'd lost everything and everyone I'd ever loved, my home, my career, so I didn't care, so I just cold turkeyed off everything and went into AA. And I've been clean and sober, drug-free since. I'm not saying I have never taken an antibiotic in the past 30 years, but I do so very limitedly, and I control. I fight most viruses and infections with simple Nature's Bounty garlic oil. Then a doctor tried to kill me. That's a whole other story. I'm going to skip that. That's in my biography. But now they're saying that canola oil is less toxic and it's perfectly safe and it can no longer harm people. But that's a lie. Poison ivy is a poison. If you genetically altered it to make it less tolerant, does that mean you'd want to feed it to your children? Just how stupid doctors are to believe that. Nothing's changed. Canola is just as toxic as it always was. It's poison. It always was poison, and it always will be. How many children died, we'll never know. 2001. Every scientific document in veterinary medicine clearly stated these chemicals cause brain dysfunction, liver damage, and too many other chronic crippling symptoms to list. Metabolic breakdown, immune deficiencies, which then allow for viruses and bacteria to invade, causing serious side effects, leading to a slow and painful death. So you live with dying. Such is the story of my life. Fact 1. Canola is a patented name meaning Canada oil to disguise its source is from rapeseed. Hans said that it was the Nazi-founded chemical warfare company Monsanto that holds the patent. This is a proven fact. Monsanto has since been purchased by Bayer. He also said that Monsanto was engaged in Germany in World War I in developing the mustard gas that murdered men by burning up their lungs and skin so deep that those who survived had to be placed in oil vats for the rest of their lives. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what he told me, and I was not able to track that evidence. I leave it to some scientists to do it. It's not important in my work with canola. But I do know that these men existed, and I used to visit them at Sunnybrook Hospital. He also said that Monsanto was responsible for Agent Orange that burned people alive and everything in its path in Vietnam. That's probably true. They're such a fascist company. I believe that's true. They also developed DDT pesticides. In 1990, their despicable invention was chemical warfare in the Gulf War, which damaged the brains and mental ability of hundreds of thousands of our military, most of whom are not being treated properly, and certainly not in Canada. And the worst invention was genetically modified plant seeds, which contain the pesticides already in the plant, claiming this will do people no harm. Oh, sure, if you believe that, then you're dumber than I ever was, and I was pretty friggin' dumb. I was so naive. I trusted that my government cared about people. Never occurred to me that Health Canada actually were murderers, and yes, they are monstrous murderers, along with Monsanto. The Canadian government allowed Monsanto to take control of Canadian agriculture, university and colleges, where agriculture is on the agenda, and providing tax breaks and laws to stop small farmers and to stop them from saving their seeds. And what little human rights we had today are non-existent. So Hans' last words to me were, Trudy, the Nazis didn't lose the war, we did, because they're all over the world and they control everything. And that's true. Fact 2. Monsanto controls Health Canada, our agricultural industry, universities, and our medical industry. 1994, FDA lifted the ban on rape alias canola based on the false reports they received from Health Canada. It's too late. Can't get the genie back into the bottle. It's spread worldwide. It'll never get banned. And it's poison. Fact 3. Rapeseed oil became part of our Canadian diet, hidden in our food and not listed on any label after World War II. 1947. 1989, a Consumer's Dictionary in Food Additives, which, by the way, is no longer on the market, it also disappeared, listed rapeseed oil as having been banned by the FDA due to its containing naturally toxic chemicals, the worst being uric acid. There is no mention of its toxic tannins and nitriles, that this is part of the science that Maria sent to me, and it's been suppressed. In 1995, rapeseed oil was no longer listed. It disappeared from the dictionary so that you can't even find it. Fact 4. Canadian government corruption is lethal and a proven fact which even they cannot dispute. Uric acid in any amount over an extended period of time causes gout, arthritis, and brain damage. Farmers testified to me that they saw animals suffer from rapeseed oil as far back as 1930 in Europe and refused to use it no matter what the government said. One company told me they were forced by government inspectors to put it into their vegetarian product as a preservative, and that's what was responsible for making me terminal again in 1995. I had an employee check into their shipping department. Their label clearly stated canola oil when they shipped to the United States on the package. But on the Canadian package, it said nothing because they didn't have to. She was so angry, she quit and said she would never work for them again. She had brought the information to the president of this company, and he didn't care. And today I'm going to tell you the name of that company. Yves. Y-V-E-S. Yves Vegetarian from Vancouver. I boycott all Canadian food industry other than Rudolph today because they're just not safe. Can't trust them. I checked others and they'd say vegetable oil. I got news for you. Rapeseed is not a vegetable. And then some that shipped to the U.S. clearly state. Metro in Canada was the only one that if I called their head office in Montreal, they would tell me what was in the product. Loblaws refused. Because our laws don't require them to help you, even if you have allergies. Screw you, die, bitch, die. Fact 5. Bodybuilding industry is big business, and desiccated liver tablets made from cattle grazing in Brazil, they are not allowed to graze anywhere near rape, alias canola. But I don't believe that's true anymore. So beware. Fact 1994. The FDA ban was lifted, and Canada's Nazi product canola oil. There's some evidence on the take that President Bush and our Prime Minister Brian Mulroney were instrumental in getting the ban lifted. If you want more facts on their corruption, you'll have to get the book On the Take by Stevie Cameron. Today I don't consider it particularly important. Yeah, what they did was crooked as hell, and they got away with it. But they are one of tens of hundreds of thousands of people who have done it. Fact 7, 1994 to 2005. Health Canada had health inspectors force health food companies put canola into their product as a preservative. And today Health Canada is trying to get health food products off the market and into prescription drugs. That's their corruption. Now, one lawyer in Toronto is fighting this, as well as Americans are fighting it, because if they are allowed to get away with this, what little rights we have will be gone. Fact 8. I was going to list the long, slow process of stomach poisoning that canola did to me, but I've changed my mind. All you need to consider is that if something is toxic, lowers your immune system, and causes digestive difficulties, obviously you will wind up with side effects as a direct result that make you vulnerable to cancer, brain damage, brain dysfunction, MS, Alzheimer's, nervous conditions, crippling chronic fatigue, just to name a few, and that's good enough. Chemical hypersensitivities are growing in our society as a direct result of the massive amounts of chemicals in our air, food, water, and beverages. This is not rocket science to figure that out. Fact 9. Science proved rapeseed oil, alias canola oil, is toxic, and in veterinary medicine, it caused all the symptoms of my Parkinsonism disease to animals that ate it. That's all you need to know. There is nothing safe about canola oil. Fact 10. The main toxic chemical, uric acid, in canola naturally contributes to gout and arthritis, as well as all the other diseases I have already mentioned. The pain to animals, of course, could not be measured, but I, as a victim, am here to tell you that the pain is horrific, and that many people in this kind of pain are on really strong painkillers. I use Tai Chi meditation so that I lived through the pain for 34 years without drugs. But I wouldn't wish this disease on my worst enemy. Well, yeah, Health Canada, I wish it on them. I take that back. I wish it on the Nazis as well, and all the fascist pigs in Canada. During their extensive research using rape, alias canola, some animals died rather quickly. Some survived, and others in short-term apparent effects. Well, you see, that's the genetic factor. Now, your parents may be able to eat canola oil and not appear to have any side effects, although I sincerely doubt that since cancer is on the increase. But it'll pass a genetic sensitivity to their children so that their conditions will be more chronic. Blood disorders, anemia, autism, lung diseases, digestive dysfunction, metabolic breakdown. No. Rapeseed oil, alias canola, is not safe for man nor beast. Fact 11. Prevention Magazine, April 2012. Michael R. Taylor, the FDA Deputy Commissioner for Food, who oversees all the agency's food and nutrition programs, was once the Vice President for Public Policy at Monsanto, a biotech company that produces an estimated 90% of the genetically modified seeds sold on this planet. Monsanto's position is there's no need for value in testing the safety of GM foods in humans. Sounds like a Nazi to me, don't you think? Fact 2014. Health Canada still refuses to give... Fact 2018. I have to change that. It's 4 years later. Health Canada still refused to give Canadians the same food labeling laws that exist in Europe and the United States for over 30 years, listing all ingredients, including canola. As a result, Canadian children and people with allergies and chemical hypersensitivities are being poisoned, and many are dying with less rights than stray dogs. And still no one cares. And for those who survive as I did, have their lives destroyed with the brutality of a torturous disease that no doctor will ever diagnose correctly or ever be able to treat properly. I have written this to prevent children from getting Parkinsonism as a direct result of canola oil, as it caused to me. But there are many other toxic chemicals, such as pesticides, that will cause my disease. So beware. Summation. Nazi and fascism is still thriving. Third generation are still in control. And our government proves that it is the very fact that Health Canada continues to dupe the medical profession with claims that canola oil is better than olive oil. In truth, butter is better. Anything is better. But if I buy an American or European product, all ingredients except for GMO are listed on the package. But as a Canadian, I am denied the right to not take an attack. I am denied the right to control allergies and chemical hypersensitivities. I am denied the right to make a choice on what I eat and what I don't eat. You can go to any bakery in any store in Canada, and the food label is blank. It doesn't have to list anything. Or they can list one item and leave out 7, or they can list 6 and leave out 2. That's very dangerous, people. That's a very, very dangerous situation in Canada. There are many other toxic chemicals in the food. Polysorbate 80 is in ice cream. And if eaten and you happen to take a multivitamin at the same time, which many children are now being exposed to, it changes the biochemistry and becomes extremely toxic. And it allows to cross the blood-brain barrier in the brain, and as a result, there is permanent brain damage. So you now have an increase in autism, learning disabilities, and crippling diseases or worse, death. Although death is a welcome release in many cases. I took such an attack, and after researching, I discovered that it was the polysorbate 80 in the ice cream that caused it. I did put out a video, polysorbate 80 can kill you. So that information's there. Do you really want to give your children my disease? Whose child will be next? What can I tell you, people? It's too late to ban rapeseed oil, alias canola, and the genocide from spreading within my lifetime. All I can tell you is that it once was banned for good reason, and it should be banned again. So boycott Canadian food until we get the laws to list all ingredients. Or beware. You don't know what you're eating, and you don't know what it's doing to you. Our new Prime Minister has approved marijuana, but taken no consideration to provide us with laws demanding full disclosure of all ingredients on chemical additives on food labels, including GMO. And I should point out to you, back in 1993, somebody put marijuana in my muffins, and I was in a coma, a semi-coma for 3 days. 1963. So I was, 23 years old, 24 years old. Anyway, the medical marijuana has proven to cause schizophrenia, brain damage, and addiction because it's been genetically altered. Where will it end? We are so insane. But the point is, if you're allergic to cantaloupe, which I am, and you genetically alter it with a green lemon, and put it with a green lemon because it does not look the same color, and you eat it, well, that's what happened to me. I thought I was buying a green lemon, and it had been genetically engineered with a green lemon, and I nearly died on it. I went anaphylactic. Fortunately, I was able to spit it out and throw it up quickly enough, but I was sick for several weeks, even though I didn't die. Now, just one last comment about Maria. God bless Maria Abden in the universe, wherever you are, Maria. I know you're in heaven with God of the universe. You sent me all that copies of the science. She decided to publish it in a small newspaper in Seattle, Washington. And a neo-Nazi group broke into her apartment and sprayed it with toxic poisons everywhere. She had to leave her apartment, lost all her records, and all her files were destroyed and forced to flee for her life. Now she spent the next 3 to 4 years anonymously helping me. And then till finally she disappeared. I believe she died because she would have contacted me if she was still alive. But all that I know that were proven, it started with the story from Hans, but I didn't have any scientific evidence at the time. Now the scientific evidence is on Facebook, on a page called CANOLA is Poison. And I've now given you on YouTube the story. For all time, I hope it will be there. I hope Google will find a way to keep YouTube going. They've been screwing up a lot lately. Not Google, but the founder of YouTube. So I don't know. He wants money. He's a trillionaire, but he wants more money. He's another greedy pig, just like the founder of Facebook. But what can you do? But anyway, that is the story. And I hope that my only purpose in living with dying, as I have done these past 77 years, was to save children from the horror of my disease and living with dying and chronic illness, and a future so bleak that death is a welcome relief. God bless you all. And please, fight. Fight back. Don't let Health Canada get away with murdering your children. Thank you. Over and out.